I never told my younger brother I was the reason he got suspended from school because the day he apologized for letting me down, I realized he had always looked up to me as a hero and I was too much of a coward to tell him his faith had been misplaced. I'm going to write this here because I don't think I'll ever say it out loud. Not to him. Not to anyone who knows us. But I think about it more often than I should. My younger brother, Zach, got suspended from school in 2011. He thought it was his fault. And I let him believe that. I never said a word. I let him apologize. I let him feel like he'd disappointed me. But the truth is, I was the reason it happened. I was 16. High school junior. Too old to be that stupid, but still young enough to think the world revolved around me. Zach was 12. 6th grade. We were 4 years apart, which doesn't seem like much now, but back then, it was the world. He still thought I was cool. He still followed me around like a shadow. He wore my old hoodies, played my games, copied the way I talked. I found it annoying most of the time. But secretly, I liked it. I liked being looked up to. That fall, I started skipping class with a guy named Ray. He was a senior who barely came to school, but when he did, he made sure people noticed. He had a bad reputation. Teachers hated him. Girls liked him. Guys either stayed away or tried to impress him. I was the latter. Ray took a liking to me. I think because I laughed at his jokes and didn't ask too many questions. We'd cut class, smoke behind the gym, talk shit about teachers. He once told me, "You're not like the rest of these kids. You got edge." I remember feeling proud when he said that, like I was finally someone. One afternoon, after I bailed on math class, we were walking around the side of the school. He lit a cigarette, handed it to me. I coughed my way through half of it before pretending I was fine. Then he pulled out a pocket knife. Said he lifted it from a gas station 2 days earlier. "Clean as hell," he said, flipping it open and shut. "Bet I could open one of those lockers." I didn't even think. I pointed across the courtyard and said, "That one, my little brother's." Ray looked at me, deadass. I nodded, grinned. It was supposed to be a joke. Or maybe I wanted to look like I didn't care. He walked over and started prying it open. "No, dude," I said, half laughing, half panicked. "You're actually doing it?" He didn't stop. "Relax. This thing barely locks anyway. You think they got time to check all the footage?" He got it about halfway open before we heard someone shout. A janitor or maybe a teacher, I can't remember. We ran. The next day, Zach got pulled out of class. They said his locker had been tampered with. Said someone saw him near it earlier in the day. Said his name came up when the footage was reviewed. They showed it to our parents, a blurry figure at the locker, Ray's hoodie half visible. No clear face. No direct evidence. But Zach had already been written up once that week for talking back to a substitute. The school didn't want to deal with it. So they suspended him. 3 days. For creating a disturbance and attempted vandalism. I still remember the exact words on the slip. I found it again last month, buried in a box my mom asked me to bring down from the attic. At the time, I said nothing. Not to the school, not to my parents, and definitely not to Zach. I kept my head down, said I didn't know what happened. And he believed me. He thought someone else was trying to mess with him. Or maybe the school just had it out for him. But he didn't think I had anything to do with it. That night, after dinner, he knocked on my door. I remember exactly what I was doing. I was laying on my bed texting a girl I just started talking to. I barely looked up. He came in holding a bag of chips. Sat on the edge of my bed for a second. Then he said, "Sorry I let you down." I looked at him. "What? You probably think I'm some dumbass kid who can't stay out of trouble." I forced a laugh. "Nah, man. You're good." He nodded like he didn't quite believe me. "I just didn't want you to be embarrassed. You know, people already say I only get away with stuff because of you." Then he got up and left. I didn't sleep that night. Over time, it faded. At least for him, I think. He went back to school. Never got in trouble again. He got quieter. More careful. He stopped shadowing me. Stopped asking to borrow my clothes. He grew up. I told myself I didn't need to say anything. That it was a dumb mistake. That he was fine. But I think I knew. Even back then. That something between us shifted. He never brought it up again. A few years ago at my cousin's wedding, Zach got drunk for the first time. Really drunk. We were both in our 20s by then and sitting outside the reception hall watching people dance through the glass. He turned to me and said, "You know, I used to think you were like, invincible." I laughed. "Dude, I barely passed high school." He shrugged. Yeah, but still. You were my hero, man. I copied everything you did. I didn't know what to say to that. He looked at me and added, I tried to be like you. Back then. I thought if I acted like you, maybe people would treat me the way they treated you. I felt sick. Physically sick. But I smiled and said, you turned out fine. That was the first time I almost told him. I had the words. I even started. Hey, Zach, remember that time? He looked over. Yeah? I shook my head. Nothing. Just glad we're good. He nodded. Always, man. I haven't tried again since. But sometimes I wonder what he'd say. If he'd be angry. Or if he'd just shrug like he always does. I don't know. What I do know is that every time he texts me, hey bro, or sends a picture of his new apartment or asks for advice about work, I feel it. That gap, that weight, that guilt I never cleared up. Because he still thinks I was someone I never really was. And I never had the guts to correct him. Last Thanksgiving, something happened that nearly brought it all up again. We were both back home. My mom still does this big dinner even though it's just the three of us now. Dad passed a few years ago and holidays have been quieter ever since. Zach brought his girlfriend, Nora. First time we'd met her. She was sweet, polite, smart, maybe a little nervous. My mom loved her. Zach looked proud every time she said something clever. After dinner, we were cleaning up. I was scraping plates into the trash when I heard them talking in the next room. Not fighting. Just hushed voices. Serious tone. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I heard my name. She asked, why do you care so much what he thinks? And Zach said, because he's him. He's my older brother. She laughed like a real laugh. Zach, you're almost 30. I know, he said. I've always wanted him to be proud of me. I don't know why. It's stupid. There was a long pause. Then he added, back in school, I got suspended once. Total screw up. And I remember thinking, this is it. This is the moment he gives up on me. I felt like I couldn't move. He kept going. But he didn't. He just brushed it off. Didn't make me feel worse. I think about that a lot. I think it's why I never totally fell apart. Nora didn't say anything at first. Then she said, have you ever told him that? No, he said. He wouldn't know what to do with it. He was right. I wouldn't. That night, I sat on the edge of my childhood bed, staring at the ceiling like I used to. But this time, I wasn't wondering if I'd get caught. I was wondering how different things might have been if I had just told the truth. I could have cleared his name, told the school it was Ray, taken the suspension myself. Hell, I deserved worse than that. But I didn't, because I was scared. Scared of my parents, of the school, of losing the little approval I had. So I let him take the hit. And somehow, in his mind, I came out looking like the good one. 3 weeks later, Zach called me out of the blue. Hey, he said, can I ask you something? Yeah, what's up? He hesitated. Back in middle school, when I got suspended. You really didn't know anything about that? My stomach dropped. I stood up, walked into the kitchen like it would help me think. Why? I asked. What made you ask that? He sighed. I was talking to Nora. I don't know. She said some stuff. Made me wonder. My chest felt like it was collapsing. I almost said it. I was right there. But then he said, never mind. Dumb question. I know you wouldn't have let that happen if you knew. And just like that, the door shut again. I laughed it off. Said, yeah, man. That was a screwed up time. Yeah, he said. Anyway, just wanted to check. Forget I said anything. We hung up. And I stood there for a long time. Phone still in my hand. Heart pounding like I just run a marathon. He had doubts. Maybe for the first time. Or maybe they were always there and he finally gave them a voice. But then I shut it down. I had a second chance to come clean and I blew it. Again. A few months after that phone call, Zach stopped texting as often. Nothing dramatic. No big blowout. Just less. No more random memes. No more, hey, you see this? Links. Even our Sunday NFL banter faded. I tried to brush it off, busy schedules, normal stuff, but it gnawed at me. Then in March, my mom called. Said Zach had been by the house and picked up some boxes from the garage. Stuff he'd left behind years ago. She said he seemed distracted. You two okay? She asked. Yeah, I lied. Just work stuff. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that moment in middle school, him standing at my door, holding that bag of chips, saying, sorry I let you down. It wasn't just guilt now. It was panic. What if he remembered more than he let on? What if someone else said something? I started spiraling. I went looking through old messages, old yearbooks. I found a blurry picture of Ray from high school posted on an old Facebook album. I hadn't thought about that guy in years. On a weird impulse, I looked him up. Ray Monroe. Turns out he'd been arrested in 2018 for aggravated assault. 2 years later, he was charged with theft again. Same old patterns. Same smirk in the mugshot. It hit me. I had tried so hard to impress a guy who turned out exactly how everyone warned me he would. And I sacrificed my brother for it. The final twist came last month. I was at a hardware store picking up paint. Zach called. First time in weeks. I answered quick. Yo. What's up, man? His voice was flat. Can I ask you something again? I stepped out into the parking lot. Yeah. Of course. You remember Ray Monroe? The air went dead around me. My throat tightened. I cleared it. Yeah. Why? Found his name in one of my old notebooks. I think he was in that footage, wasn't he? I froze. What do you mean? I think he's the one who broke into my locker. I didn't know what to say. I felt the truth rising up like a wave. Zach went on. I remember now. I saw him near the courtyard that day. He was with someone else. I didn't see faces. Just the two of them walking off. Then he added quietly, like he wasn't sure why he was saying it. It felt like they knew me. Like it wasn't random. My mouth was dry. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear. And then he asked, was it you? I didn't answer him. Not right away. I just stood there in the middle of that hardware store parking lot, phone pressed to my ear, watching some guy load wood into the back of his truck like nothing in the world was happening. Zach didn't say anything either. He waited. Quietly. Like he already knew. And in that silence, I realized something I hadn't let myself see before. He'd figured it out. Maybe not all at once, maybe not the whole story, but enough. Enough to finally ask the question. And I couldn't say yes. Not because I didn't want to, but because hearing him ask out loud made it real in a way it never had been before. Like the weight of all those years, the lie, the silence, the way I let him carry that shame alone had finally landed right in the center of my chest. So I stood there, completely still, holding the phone, not saying a word. And that silence, it said everything.